Hello, my friends. Welcome. My name is Joe. This is the Joe Martino Show. And today, well, buckle up, because we're about to go on a bit of a rant. Julie wrote in and asked, what's the big deal about men's mental health? And Julie, you just picked the wrong week to send that email. Let's kick it off. This is the Joe Martino Show.
You're listening to The Joe Martino Show, a podcast dealing with all things emotional, relational, and human nature. Joe is a licensed counselor in the state of Michigan, specializing in relationship therapy. He is also the author of the book, The Emotionally Secure Couple. All advice offered in this episode is offered for entertainment and educational purposes only. Enjoy the show.
All right. Welcome back. I hope your day is going well. Maybe it's just starting. Maybe it's almost about to end. Wherever you are in your day, I hope that it is going well. Today, we're just going to jump right into the deep end of what's going on. I had someone write in about my men's series. They did not sign their name. They signed some name that, we'll just leave it at that. But essentially, it was a long email asking me questions about why I made such a fuss about men's mental health. And quote, it isn't that bad, end quote. Women have mental health issues too, which is true. I would never deny that. In fact, I would agree that women have mental health issues too. I would never deny that. I think we're doing somewhat better talking about women's mental health issues than we are men, though. But here's the thing, Julie. I made up her name. I have no idea what her real name is, but I'm going with Julie. Here's the thing, Julie. In the not too distant past, between the end of recording my podcast about men's mental health and recording this one, I had to go to a friend's house where he had lost his battle to his mental health issues. And I sat in his living room with his wife and kids and his parents and his family members while everyone just stared off into space. And Julie, we sat there because he was no longer with us. And so when I get emails like this, a lot of times, I take them, I'll be honest with you, I take them and I show them to my daughter and I kind of laugh about them and we have fun with some of the comments that we get. But the stakes on this one are too high. The stakes on this one are way too high. Men are dying. And yes, women are too, but men are dying 3.5 times at a higher rate. And so to just be like, well, women, patriarchy, you're missing it, Julie. Here's the thing. We can't address every issue in every episode, right? You just can't. Just like at your house, there's probably a list of things that you want to do. Your apartment, there's a list of things that you want to do. And you prioritize them and you pick. But here's the thing. Once you're doing one thing, once you're talking about one thing, then you can't talk about the others. At least not and do them both justice and talk well about both of them. That's the tension that I live in. That is the world that I live in doing this podcast. And so when we talk about men's mental health, I was going to bring up ESPN did a 4-part series on how young men are far more likely to be addicted to online gambling than any other group, like ages 18 to 25 or something. Why? Here's the thing. They were like, the government needs to be putting money aside to help those people. Or maybe we need to actually start with this reality. We are anesthetizing men from life. We are taking men and we're telling them to be docile. And even on my TikTok page, which by the way, if you want to follow me on TikTok, I am Joe Martino is the handle. Somebody's like, this just kind of feels like he's saying it's okay for men to hit girls. What are you talking about? No, that is not okay. But we've gone so far into this world. Of course, young men are at risk for higher addiction rates to online gambling. Of course they are. Why? Because it's adventure. It's colleagues, right? It's buddies. It's mates. It's friends. We're doing it together and we're living what feels like a risk-free adventure. Of course, it isn't risk-free, right? Of course, there actually is risk, and that's the loss of money. But what does that have to do with Julie's email? Well, I'm glad you asked, because it all ties back to men's mental health, right? What we're doing is we're sending a message to men of there are certain things that you can do, and we're not thinking it through. That's kind of my thought. We're just not thinking it through. And Like, that's not even, I know that there are people like, man, your podcast should be more uplifting. And maybe it should be, I don't know, but this is a problem that I see that has to change. We have to stop telling men to anesthetize their pain and then castigating them when they do. Of course, gambling, online gambling is going to be appealing to college-age kids. First of all, fast money, right? But then the adventure. And here's the thing. What happens then when that person reaches their 40s? Or maybe they're 40 and they're struggling with it. Because here's the thing, Julie. Men are struggling everywhere. And it's not always the men that you think. For instance, my friend, my wife and I were talking about it. Everybody loved him. Everybody loved him. Except himself. He couldn't figure out himself. And here's the thing. We've got to stop just telling men what they're not. We need to start telling them what they are. We need to stop telling our boys what they're not. We need to start telling them what they are. This is the essence of identity parenting that I talked about in previous episodes. If you want to listen to that episode, if you haven't, it's episode 233. So wherever you listen to your podcast, just go there. But this is why we talk about that. Because what happens when we don't have identity is we lose our way. Just recently, there was a grown man, 50 years old, sitting on my couch in my therapy room crying because I said, I wonder if most of your struggles aren't because you don't know who you are. That's existential. You don't know what you do that's meaning. That's existential. And you're not sure how to give and receive love. You feel like people love you just because you provide. You feel like people love you just because you keep a roof over their head. You feel like people love you just because you put food on their table. And if you talk about your feelings, there's always someone like Julie who's willing to shoot you down and tell you that women have it harder. And so they therefore dismiss your feelings and create more grief for you. And it becomes a spiral that too often ends in death. Do you know how many men feel like they are defined by their one big mistake? And there's almost always someone willing to tell them that that's what they're defined by. Guys who've devoted their entire lives to helping other people screw up. They have an affair. They get drunk and drive, which they shouldn't do. Don't get me wrong. They shouldn't do those things. But literally, the rest of their life, they're told by someone that's how they're defined. I'm telling you, it's so many men. It's so many men. And so when I get an email like this from Julie, I'll be honest with you, it blows my mind. I'm like, Julie, it's 2024. We need to accept the fact that men are struggling too. And they're anesthetizing themselves in ways with online gambling. They're anesthetizing themselves with things that don't make sense because they're afraid and they're hurting. The wife who catches her husband looking at porn. I know some of my listeners don't care about porn, but the wife who catches her husband, that's so disgusting. You're so disgusting. Hold on, take a deep breath. The truth is, I have heard women be more compassionate about convicted felons than I have their husband's own mistakes. And I get it. It's because their husband's mistakes brought pain to them. But I'm telling you, we've got to change this. Together, we have got to come together and we have got to start a groundswell of changing this. We have got to let men know that they're more than providers. They are more than people putting a roof over your head. They are more than people putting food on your table. We've got to let them know that. We have got to let men know who they are. We've got to start talking about identity, right? And yes, there are things we can do. I've talked about this ad nauseum. In fact, this will probably be a shorter episode because we can do away with the man caves and we can do away with the rah-rah-rahs. But there's got to be a space for men to explore. What does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to make mistakes and to overcome them? What does it mean to really screw up and overcome it? What does it mean to grieve? What does it mean to have mental health issues? What does it mean to struggle with the idea that my family would be better off without me? What does it mean to feel like my family would just be better if I wasn't here? They don't deserve this. Because here's the thing. Every guy that we lose, we increase the risk of losing more people. Every person that we lose to suicide, we increase the risk of losing more people. Look up the statistics. People who had a parent die by suicide, their chances of dying by suicide are significantly higher than people who didn't have a parent die by suicide. Loved ones get spun out because it doesn't make sense, right? For the survivors, you're stuck in this place where you're grieving and you're angry at the same time. For the survivors, you're stuck in this place where you just want to hug the person one more time and you want to punch them. You're stuck in this place where you think, well, maybe if I had done this, they wouldn't have done that. Maybe if I had done that, they wouldn't have done it. Maybe this, maybe that. And you get caught up in a million maybes that none of them can ever be verified. And your brain just spins. And as near as I can tell, the best we're doing is we come up with stupid slogans like stomp the stigma. Like, we need to do more. And I hate that phrase without anything added to it because it's so much virtue signaling, right? We've all seen the social media posts. Do better. Okay, Mr. Virtue Signaler. My favorite is the one about Taylor Swift. Can't believe people don't like Taylor Swift. Do better. Okay, Mr. Virtue Signaler. But what do we do better? Well, I think we invite men into real adventure. But here's the rub with adventure. Everyone wants adventure. No one wants to feel like they're at risk. Right? We need to invite men into real adventure. Go do something meaningful. I don't care if it's you want to feed the homeless in your town. You want to cut all the grass, all the elderly people who are stuck, not maybe able to do yard care. You want to help them out. I don't care what it is. You want to go to a nursing home and read to people there, or set up people there reading to young people. Find something that's meaningful. Make space, make room for the men in your life to grieve, for the men in your life to wonder, for the men in your life to wrestle, but wrestle with them. And I'm not talking to women here. I'm talking to guys too. You have friends that you need to wrestle with. You have friends that you need to wade into the fray with. You have friends that you need to show up for. And then if you're on the wrong side of a death by suicide, show up for the survivors. Look, the first 10 days, nobody remembers anything because it's all just this crazy swirl. But then it gets hard because people go back to their normal lives. And for the people who survived, the wife, the kids, the brothers, the sisters, the parents, there is no back to normal. There is no back to normal. So you show up. Even if it isn't a death by suicide, and it's a death, this is true. But you show up. That could be your adventure. Because the other part of adventure is everybody wants adventure, but nobody wants to be uncomfortable. And yet in every adventure that sells, every adventure story that we flock to, that we dump tons of money into to watch, to hear, to consume, the heroes are uncomfortable. I don't really have necessarily a great outline for this today. I'll be honest with you, the overwhelming emotion that I feel right now is anger, which means there's a primary emotion underneath that, right? Longtime listeners. And that's hurt because good people are dying, and we have to step up and chase out, what does it mean to help people? What does it mean to wrestle with people? What does it mean to show up? Who's your tribe? That's probably a different podcast, but who's your tribe? Who are you showing up for? And quit coming with this, well, other people have emotional issues too. Yes, I agree, and we can talk about them, and in the future, I hope that we do. In the past, I've talked about teenagers' mental health issues. I've talked about college-age students' mental health issues. Maybe I'll have Eric on and we'll talk about that. I don't know. But we've got to stop. We've got to stop this craziness. What's the big deal? The big deal, Julie, is people are dying. I hope you listen to this. All right, that's today's episode. Listen, if you like this, please share it with your friends. If you haven't followed me on Instagram or TikTok yet, I am on both under the handle I am Joe Martino. And of course, you can find me on Facebook, joemartino.16, I think. All right, thanks so much for listening. We'll catch you next week.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please share with a friend. And hey, give us that rating in your podcast store. Until next time, change possible.